Let the record reflect we've reconvened with all members present. Please stand for the pledge, and please remain standing after the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing. On September 19th, we lost another great Madisonian, Ruth Russell, as called in her obituary, Precious Jewel, who died at the age of 89. Ruth and her husband, Bear, moved to Madison in the early 40s, raised their two children, Alan and Karen. Professionally, she had a 45-year career as a nurse at Overlook Hospital. And here in Madison, she volunteered with the Ambulance Corps, assisted with the Madison Police Department, as well as volunteering with the Madison High School track program. All of us who knew Ruth understood that special spirit, and how Carmela and I heard today at her service how she brought joy into every room she entered. She brought joy into my life with her periodic phone calls. As I also learned today, there was many in this town that got those phone calls. Her messages often started with, "This is your favorite resident, Ruthie Russell, calling her favorite mayor. No need to call back. I just wanted to say hello." Of course, I knew if I didn't call back, I would get another call the next day, and I'd be missing a great conversation, so I would always call Ruthie back. I never did call her that, though. And her obituary noted her life's motto, which is great advice for all of us: life is what you make it. It also stated, to know Ruth was to love her. I would say it differently. If Ruth Russell was your friend, then you were truly loved. Let us take a moment of silence for our jewel, Ruth Russell. Thank you. Motion for the executive minutes of September 12th, 2018.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And the motion for the regular minutes of September 12th, 2018.
So moved.
Second.
We had corrections at our places. Any other discussion or corrections? All in favor?
Aye.
Welcome. It appears that maybe fall has arrived on schedule. We just missed the usual beautiful month of September somehow, all of its nice weather. But it's been a little shorter time than in between meetings, since our last meeting was on a Wednesday. So unlike my last greeting, it'll be a lot shorter this time. This past Thursday, we had the second multi-campus Peace March supporting Martin Luther King's concept of beloved community. There was over 150 participants in the march. It started at St. Elizabeth's campus and grew as it progressed to Fairleigh Dickinson University and then on to Drew University, finishing at the plaza right out in front here. It was organized by the three campuses and included speakers and music from the students, and truly was a very great event and very positive event. And I want to thank our Madison Police Department for providing the support for all the marchers, making sure they got from St. Elizabeth's all the way here safely. And the only other thing I have to announce right now is just a reminder that because our next meeting would fall on Columbus Day, we will again be meeting on a Wednesday, October 10th. So mark your calendars. Moving on to reports from committees. Council President Rowe.
Oh my gosh. Just a reminder, we have flu clinic dates finalized as follows: Tuesday, October 9th from 10 to 11 at the Madison Housing on Chateau Thierry, and Wednesday, October 17th, and Wednesday, October 24th from 9 to 11 at the Civic Center on Walnut Street. Next, the Health Department is receiving and reviewing applications for our upcoming Bottle Hill Day on Saturday, October 6th. Please note that all food vendors must check in with the Health Department for a temporary food license permit. And last, the MASSA-sponsored Hidden in Plain Sight program held last week was well attended. The program is designed to give parents clues from a teen's bedroom to help them determine whether or not their child might be experimenting or using drugs or alcohol. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Public Works and Engineering, Ms. Vitale.
Thank you, Mayor. Engineering report will be a little extensive because, as you can tell, there's a lot going on in Madison. So the milling work on Greenwood Avenue, Kings Road, and Elmer Street is scheduled to begin this week and will continue until complete. Paving will commence Monday, October 1st, and continue, weather permitting, until it's absolutely complete. Madison appreciates the cooperation of the public in traffic control and detour plans as it affects multiple heavily used streets near the municipal center. Residents have been noticed that it is our intention to finish paving as quickly as possible to restore these roads, which have undergone a lot of construction work this summer. DPW has also diligently been working on manhole improvements on those streets in preparation for the final paving work. Good news, the granite paver work behind Hartley Dodge Memorial was completed, and several new sidewalk ramps along Kings Road and tree-related sidewalk repairs on several streets in Madison have also been completed. Cefali, at the request of the Complete Streets Committee, worked with the Madison School District to complete improvements to the Main Street crosswalks in advance of the opening of the junior school. The County of Morris awarded a construction contract for Central Avenue improvements to AGM Construction on September 12th and has scheduled a pre-construction meeting on October 10th. The work will include ADA sidewalk, ramps, NJDEP compliant storm inlets, milling, paving, signage, and striping. Public Service, Electric and Gas is progressing with gas main replacements on Cook Avenue and Community Place. PSE&G has alerted Madison that work on Saturdays can be anticipated until the projects in Madison are completed. JTG Construction completed water main replacement work on Plain Street and will initiate curb installation this week. The contract includes milling and paving work, which is also scheduled to be completed in October. Both JoMed Contractors and NTech Pipelining Company have finished their work on Elmer Street and will be submitting final payment requests this month. So Elmer Street is almost done. Diversified Infrastructure Services initiated 2018 sewer video and assessment work on their 90-day contract this month. The contract will assess nearly 20 miles of sewer main by the end of the year. Ray Palmer Associates Incorporated are preparing contracts and bonds for well A and B treatment plant improvements, and a pre-construction meeting will be scheduled within the next 2 weeks. Plan and specifications for Greenwood Avenue reconstruction north were submitted for review to NJDOT local aid under MA-18 funding program requirements this month. And there were also 3 applications for 2019 New Jersey DOT local project grants that will be submitted by October the 8th. Clark Canton Hints will be submitting final plans for the Hartley Dodge Memorial Plaza, improvements to Borough of Madison and County of Morris to advance this project to bid, phase, and construct by early 2019. This is good news for some people out here. Joe Caruso Landscape initiated the trails improvements in Summerhill Park last week following a trail plan approved and funded last year by the County of Morris Trails Construction Grants Program. The revised trail plan was submitted to the County of Morris last week following review comments in the MRC Accessible Trail, which was submitted for possible grant funding later this year. So we're making good progress. Thank you, Astrid.
Thank you, Carmela.
So, Department of Public Works. The Mechanics Department, they really started to service and repair all the leaf loaders because guess what? It's going to be leaf season pretty soon. And they checked and readied a chipper for a big storm. Thank God that did not come.
Excuse me, thank you.
Recharged air conditioning system on the fire engine 1, and they service and repaired police vehicles. The parks and the road department work pretty much closely together. They're still trimming and weeding and watering flower baskets. They also did some work down at the Civic Center parking lot. They restriped it. They restriped the school zone, trimmed school zone trees. They're paving potholes, installing street signs, and delivered barricades to appropriate locations. The sewer department is doing their maintaining day-to-day lift station operation and have responded to residential sewer calls and replaced and fixed catch basins and handled miscellaneous markouts. That's it, Mayor.
Thank you. And Finance Borough Clerk, Ms. Bailey.
Thank you, Mayor. From the tax collector, the annual tax sale is set for September 27th at 10 a.m. There's only one property in Madison that has not fully paid their 2017 taxes, and all municipalities are required by statute to hold an annual sales of unpaid real estate taxes. By selling off these tax liens to a third party, the borough is able to effectively collect the unpaid taxes and no longer have the liability on our books. From the Personnel Department, Resolution R-256-2018 on the agenda tonight is asking the Council to amend the Borough Personnel Policies and Procedures Manual. Every 2 years, the Borough's insurance carrier issues a model Personnel Policies and Procedures Manual, which typically includes any statutory changes and other best practice changes. On May 2nd, 2018, Governor Murphy signed a new law that requires employers to provide paid sick leave to all employees, including part-time employees. This law becomes effective October 1st, 2018. Adopting this resolution will put the borough in compliance with the state law and allow the borough to be eligible for lower insurance costs. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Public Safety, Mr. Olkowitz.
Thank you, Mayor. From the Fire Department, they'd like to let you know that the chief, along with several members of the department, and also members of the Madison's Firemen's Exempt Association, attended the annual New Jersey Firemen's Relief Association convention, which was held in Wildwood, New Jersey on September 14th and 15th. In addition, members of our fire department attended the county's annual 9/11 ceremony that was held at the Morris County September 11th Memorial in Parsippany. And then finally, I have mentioned this a couple of times, and obviously haven't been very effective at it, but the fire department is very seriously looking for volunteers. We're now at the lowest number of volunteers in the entire history of our fire department, which is over 130 years old. There have been articles calling for volunteers that recently appeared in the Madison Eagle, our town information directory, and the Madison Monthly, and on the borough's Facebook, all of which are good sources to learn a little more about what this all entails. And then finally, you can always go to the website of the MadisonFD.com. So it's www.madisonfd.com. The requirements for becoming a volunteer fireman is that you be in good physical condition and between the ages of 18 and 45, and it's men and women are welcome to try for the volunteer positions. I really encourage any of you who have the time and the interest to pursue this. Thank you.
Thank you. Community Affairs, Ms. Byrne.
Thank you, Mayor. From the Senior Center. The Senior Center is going to be having a wellness initiative for senior education program. It will be held on Thursdays through November, and then December 6th and 13th. And they, Sarah has really done a stellar job of lining up speakers for this, and it encompasses wellness beyond the body. We are going to have someone talk about mental health. We have someone coming in and talking about retirement and savings you can make. So I encourage all of you to call the Senior Center at 973-593 3095, and they'll be able to tell you what's coming up. Hold on. From the Downtown Development Manager, the Madison High School Marching Dodgers will hold their annual Tournament of Bands this Sunday, September 30th at 12:45 at the high school. Admission for adults is $10, seniors and children $5. And the Marching Dodgers sometimes get put to the side when we look at fall sports, but they are as serious about what they do as all of the fall athletic programs. So they need our support too. Bottle Hill Day and the 26th Chamber Car Show are scheduled for Saturday, October 6th. The day begins at 10 o'clock in the morning. Come out and enjoy a fun-filled day, which in addition to the car show, which will only be on if it's not raining, 4 stages featuring great music, 200 vendor booths, 3 amusement areas, multiple food courts, and of course, the DDC Beer Garden. The Chamber of Commerce, in partnership with the Garden Club of Madison, is once again going to dress up downtown for fall with cornstalks and family-friendly scarecrows decorated by Chamber member businesses and organizations. For Halloween, the DDC and the Chamber of Commerce invite you to the Madison Volunteer Ambulance Corps for an evening of spooky fun for the entire family on Friday, October 26th from 6 to 7 p.m. right here in the Hartley Dodge building. And I don't promise anything, but maybe Lincoln will walk. And then the pumpkin illumination and trunk or treat are also on Friday, October 26th. Families are encouraged to bring a carved pumpkin, and we will put a safe illumination in the pumpkin and then line them up along the plaza outside. And then after you've dropped off your pumpkin, you can go to the Volunteer Ambulance Corps for the 3rd annual Trunk or Treat, to include a trunk decorating competition, trick-or-treating games, pumpkin painting, and more. And, trunk or treat is the best invention. You don't have to go ring anybody's door. You just have to go from one car to the next, and then you go home. The 2018 Halloween Parade and Magic Show is scheduled for Saturday, October 27th, and the Farmers Market continues. It will be on Central Avenue through through October 25th, and then beginning on November 1st, the market will move to the Madison Community Arts Center on Kings Road and run on Thursdays through December 20th. And wow, I'm missing a lot. Dodgetoberfest will be held on Saturday, October 20th from 4 to 9. This is a new event, fall festival held on the grounds of Madison High School. Admission is $10 for anyone over 14 and Madison High School students with their school ID. The admission is a major fundraiser for the Madison High School class councils. And then finally, the pool may be closed, but the Madison Food Truck Fest on Sunday, October 28th will take place at the Madison Community Pool. More details will be shared shortly. And then finally finally from Recreation, talks are underway with the Little League organization to join with all the other sports programs in participating in the MRC. There has been some discussion about returfing the MRC fields, and a plan has been put together that would allow us to set money aside from user fees and rental fees over the next few years, and then use
That's
that
coming
money.
up as part of the open space
Yeah.
report.
Oh, is that part of open space? Okay,
that's from
so never mind.
Thank you.
And moving on, sorry, utilities, Mr. Hoover.
Well, those two, Carmelas and Maureen's, are a little tough to follow. Haven't quite got that much. The electric department, yours truly did get to tour JZP&L. If anybody has a chance to do that, and you're allowed to, I would encourage it. It's really great. Terrific equipment down there and wonderful people. And in addition to the normal markouts and house services, the electric department is currently working on the bank of transformers that feed the Elks Club and the bank across the street. They need to be replaced with a new pole and 3 new transformers, so they're working on that. They're also trying to work with the Atlantic Health to give them temporary service, but until now the rain has halted that work. The crew went with the police and public works to trim out trees at all bad spots in school zones and at all stop signs. For the water department, the hydrant flushing is going to start in October, so be aware of that. And sometimes there is some brown water that occurs as a result of that. That's only temporary. Don't worry about it. It's fine. Okay, and that's pretty much it, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Communications and petitions.
None received, Mayor.
Okay, we are on the first of 2 invitations for discussion. As always, this is the one that is limited to agenda discussion items and also the resolutions that are listed on the consent agenda. So today's agenda discussions are open space quarterly update and electric utility reliability reports. Again, a reminder, there'll be an open invitation for discussion coming up shortly. But let me just quickly go through the resolutions so you know what they are when the consent agenda comes up. Resolution 256, as was described by Austria in her report, is related to the adoption of the new employee handbook. Resolution 257, appointing 2 substitute crossing guards. Resolution 258 is resolution authorizing the amendment to the lease agreement for the KRE urban renewal. So this is at the Green Village Road school site, and that's a community space, and it's adjusting the hours of operation that we can use our community space. Resolution 259 is confirming payment number 1 and change orders to JTG Construction for Plain Street reconstruction. That's authorizing payment of $112,000. Resolution 260 is appointing new acting subcode official, plumbing subcode official for the building department. Resolution 261, authorizing NJ DOT grant application for municipal grant bikeway system, and that's important. I just heard from the commissioner of DOT that a lot of money is left on the table in the bikeway program, so hopefully that will result in money for Madison. Resolution 262, another grant application for Safe Streets to Transit program related to train station. 263, resolution, another grant application for Glenwild Road as one of the few roads in Madison that is eligible for state funding. So hopefully we'll have a state support on that. Resolution 264, authorizing purchase of water meters data recorders and radio frequency, and this is through Morris County Co-op Pricing Council, and this is the amount of $19,760. Resolution 265, purchase of police vehicle accessory equipment from the police outside duty account, not to exceed $50,000. Resolution 266, purchase of police equipment and accessories under state contract in the amount not to exceed $25,000. Resolution 267, awarding contract purchase of police vehicle cameras and accessories under state contract in the amount not to exceed $12,500. Resolution 268, authorizing purchase of services from Gen Electric under New Jersey, under the Morris County cooperative pricing for work on traffic signal improvements, and that's not to exceed $2,000. Resolution 269, amending the lease for wireless communications, and that's for cell phone tower on and borough locations. So those are the resolutions. You may comment on any of those, and now you know what they're on the consent agenda. Anyone wishing to comment on agenda discussions or those resolutions, please step forward and state your name, your address. Seeing none, I close this part of the meeting, and we move on to open space quarterly update. And I will ask Astrid to do introductions and take it over from here so I can recover from all those resolutions.
Thank you, Mayor. We have two parts to the open space discussion tonight. The first part is Barbara Heskins-Davis is here from the Land Conservancy to update the council on where we stand with the open space element to the master plan. And then after that, our CFO will present the quarterly report. So Barbara, would you like to proceed? Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Barbara I'm sorry?
Go ahead.
My name is Barbara Heskins-Davis. I'm Vice President of Programs with the Land Conservancy of New Jersey, and I'm also a licensed planner. The Land Conservancy of New Jersey has been hired by the borough to update your open space and recreation plan. The borough is being proactive in updating its open space plan so it can continue to receive funding through the Green Acres program for land acquisitions. Specifically, the borough has been applying successfully for reimbursement funding for the purchase of the Madison Recreation Center property. So the borough's open space program started in 2004. In 2003, this is the only town that I've been to where we were asked to come do a presentation on what an open space program is and what an open space trust fund is. We had the meeting in the Borough Hall before it was renovated, right down the hall, standing room only. The meeting resulted in the passage of the Open Space Trust Fund that November by borough residents, and we did your open space plan in record time in 2004 so you could qualify for Green Acres funding. The advantage of having an open space plan combined with an open space trust fund is that the borough is eligible for enhanced funding through the state of New Jersey. Rather than qualifying for project-specific dollars, you have an account basically with the state of Green Acres that says any of the properties that are identified in your open space plan, if the borough so chose, could qualify for matching grants from the state of New Jersey. And it's a pretty big deal. If you have to apply project-specific, you're not guaranteed 50% funding. The application is extensive. They can be upwards of 60 pages, and they're expensive and time-consuming to fill out. When you're in the planning incentive program, your open space plan is basically your application. So it's a great investment. The Borough of Madison did your open space plan in 2004. We updated it in 2009 because at that time the state was requiring it be current for every 5 years. The state is now requiring that the plans be current every 10. So that's why the borough is updating it now with an anticipated final in 2019. The timing is perfect. The state did not have a funding round in 2018, but we anticipate in October that they're going to release applications with them being due in February. So having your open space plan done, set, will have the borough in great stead to get funding. So I prepared a handout on the back of which are just some facts about your open space program. It lists the goals that were in your 2009 plan update, which still work in 2018 and 19. and it gives a really brief history of your open space program. Madison Borough always manages to raise the bar, and no matter what it does, you can tell from your council reports. I go to a lot of municipal meetings, and yours is definitely one of my favorite to go to. Madison Borough is one of the only towns where its Open Space Committee has proactively taken the responsibility for the Open Space Trust Fund, not limiting themselves to saying which properties they recommend that the council pursue for acquisition, but understanding that open space is a holistic program for the municipality. Not only does it mean land acquisition, but it really refers to the health and wellness of your community. So Madison Borough's Open Space Committee has set up what they call their policy and guidelines, by which other community groups can submit applications to the Open Space Committee, basically for review and discussion by the committee. The committee is made up of a cross-section of municipal organizations and bodies, and they are very thoughtful in their review and then present them to the council for approval. So Austria will follow it tonight with one of the committee's recommendations. I share these guidelines with other communities that the Land Conservancy works with. To give you an idea of the scope, we've completed 144 plans throughout the state of New Jersey, of which 78 are open space and recreation plans and open space plan updates, which means that your program is being shared with communities throughout the state of New Jersey. And as open space matures in the state of New Jersey, I think other communities are going to catch up to what Madison is doing in its open space program. Jim is going to follow my report to give you an accounting of the Open Space Trust Fund. And again, Madison is very thoughtful on how they track their expenditures and report that on a quarterly basis to the council, which is very responsible of the Open Space Committee and the Borough Council. What I brought with me tonight are two maps. The map that's called the Open Space Map in Madison is a draft. So this map is required by Green Acres. They call it your Open Space Systems Map. And in Madison Borough, we use the tax assessor database to provide a picture of how the land is used in the borough. Anything that's green is permanently protected. You have 150 acres on your recreation and open space inventory with the state of New Jersey. And those are the bright colored green parcels. There is county parkland within Madison Borough, and it's shared with Lewanika. Lewanika itself is 570 acres, and 23 of which are in Madison Borough. And the Park Commission also owns part of the Traction Line Trail, which extends from Madison into Florham Park. The pink properties on the map are educational properties. You have Drew University, FDU, you have your high school, elementary schools, and private schools. The purple properties are municipal properties, so your municipal building, firehouse, utility properties are all identified on the map. Anything that is yellow on the map, your tax assessor has assessed as undeveloped land. It's a Class 1 property. Anything that has that beige, peachy color is residential property that's greater than half an acre. And the reason that that's included is because it could be that property is underdeveloped or it's next to a municipal park, and it could be an opportunity for acquisition for open space. I'll give you an example. In my community, I live in Randolph Township. I served as chair of the Open Space Committee, and when we first started, we did not include residential property on our open space map, so we never looked at it as potential acquisition. And we actually had our largest developer come to an open space meeting and said that this property that was 10 acres, which was right at the end of our trail system, was residentially assessed, and that owner would not sell it to him for development, no matter how much he talked to the owner. Really wanted to see it preserved. And all we had to do was pick up the phone and call her, and I have a photograph of her property hanging in my office so I don't forget. So it's good to be broad and then careful about property you're interested in acquiring. So if a resident comes up and asks you why their property is on the open space map, you can just tell them that at some point, if they were willing, it could be an opportunity or it may not be. And that's really why you then kind of move on to your Greenway map. So this map is from 2009, and the homework for the Open Space Committee, because I'm going to leave both maps here, is for them to really take a look at it. When we looked at your open space in 2009, We took a step back and looked at Madison as a system of open space. If you concentrate on the health and wellness of your community, how can open space enhance that? Well, in Madison Borough, your historic tree-lined streets, your cultural resources, your downtown. People want to walk to downtown in Madison. They want to walk to your parks. They want to walk to concert venues. Those walkable components are added to this plan. It's wonderful that Madison's applying for a bike grant through NJDOT. Go get them. Get all the money you can, because those bikeways are important. Your tree-lined areas are really important, so we put the treed landscape on the map. We looked at what your park systems were, and we created this interconnected system of your parks and open spaces and how you could walk from one to the other. Madison is one of the few communities in New Jersey that's achieved silver certification through the Sustainable Jersey program in 2016. In 2019, you're going to be up for renewal, and I wouldn't put it past Madison to try to apply for gold once they figure out what gold certification is. And a program like this is really going to take you far. So next steps really for the borough is that the purpose of my coming tonight is to give the Borough Council an idea of where the Open Space Committee is on their plan update, is to answer questions from the council and from the public on the open space plan, and then to have Jim talk about the status report for the open space program. The committee will then go back, they'll look at the two maps, they'll provide comments to the Land Conservancy so we can update the mapping for the municipality, and then probably in the first quarter of 2019, we'll come back to the planning board to present the draft plan in full so the planning board can review it, and then we'll then ask the planning board to adopt it as an element of the master plan once we've incorporated their comments, so you can submit it to the state and continue to receive funding from the state for land acquisition in the borough. So with that, I thank you. It's really up to you whether you want to open it up now or if you'd like to just move right on to Jim.
I think what we'll do is we'll open it right now, questions for Barbara from the council, and I will give a chance for public questions in a second too. Any questions from it? Pat?
Well, just thank you very much for the update. Actually, I only have one request. Is it possible for us to get digital copies of those maps so we can look at them as well?
Of course.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Actually, I don't have a question. Thank you for sticking with us for so long. We're here in Madison. We're rather proud of what we've done, or rather what Austria has done with open space.
We've done.
And I think the community is really better for it.
Great.
Any questions from the public? Not comments, but it would be questions. Okay. Thank you. And Jim.
Thank you, Mayor. We're first going to talk about, as Barbara referenced, a somewhat quarterly report from the Open Space Trust Fund. It was prepared a week and a half ago, and it's available. Council's received it. There's copies of it up there. Single sheet operations, inflows and outflows. Looks very familiar to what you've seen multiple times before because we report this to you. The tax levy, field rental and user fees is slightly ahead of an $80,000 estimated schedule. Funds from reserved Green Acres Fund to pay for land portion of 2018 debt. We were fortunate enough to receive a second $500,000 amount from Green Acres just recently at the end of 2017, which we can use to help us pay the land portion of the debt at the MRC. That amount we kind of set aside in a little coffee can because we don't want to spend it and can't really spend it on anything else. So we pulled $145,000 out of that, or out of that $500,000. If you see down here at the bottom, there's $355,000 left, the very last number. So that helped us pay the MRC debt, which we'll talk about in a minute. Interest rates have been going up. Our bank is offering higher interest rates, and so it looks like we're going to do better than our estimated amount of $8,000 for interest. And Ordinance 43, which council passed, which was a $40,000 for improvement to baseball fields, required $8,000 from the Little League, and the Little League made that contribution, so that's shown there in the inflows. The outflows, we have the semi-annual debt payment, interest and debt payment for the MRC. That's done and complete for the year. $145,000 of that is for land, the principal of the land, the rest is interest on the land and interest and principal on the turf. The DRE common area maintenance fee, the road that goes through the MRC, goes into the Gail Rockefeller development in Florham Park, and part of the purchase required that there be a common area maintenance fee, and they would maintain plowing that road and alike, so we pay $833 a month to them on that. The other items, I'm not going to go through them one at a time, but they're all the items that basically council approves throughout the year for funding from the Open Space Trust. So the beginning balance was $257,000 and the ending balance was $575,000. That does not include the two numbers at the very bottom. $300,000 was a gift that was donated to the Open Space Trust Fund and its restricted funds for remediation, land acquisition, and aquifer recharge. And then the remaining $355,000 of Green Acres funds, which we will use for future payment of land principal in 2019 and 2020. So that is a summary. I don't think there's any surprises on here, but if anybody has any questions, I'll take them now.
Actually, it's probably more a question for Astrid, but do we have any other projects that we're anticipating the Open Space Committee is going to be recommending for this year?
I just received one application in my package this past week. It's a very minor amount.
Okay.
And I'm not sure where Zach Ellis is with Little League, because the first Little League project is the $40,000 grant that we're doing, and then they have another set of fields that they will come to us, but I'm not sure whether they'll make it by the end of this year. They may.
Okay.
And then we have a rolling list of projects. Well, you know, it's basically a first come, first serve. You know, there's.
Yeah, but that's always sort of been my point. It shouldn't be first come, first serve. The council should look at all the projects and say, where do we think they should rank, as opposed to just who gets to the money first.
Well, no, maybe I said that wrong,
Okay.
who comes first, because the Little League spent several years figuring out how they should go about expanding and improving their fields. And the first project was, I thought it was going to come before us 2 years ago. And then the rules changed and they decided that field didn't need that improvement. Then they had another idea that they were going to use. So it's, you know, you're working with a combination of the employees of the town, like Zach Ellis is working with a volunteer group, volunteer parents who give a lot of time and effort, and they want to get it right. So they feel they're getting it right, and the baseball has put together this project. The Open Space Committee has toured all the fields, all the parks, and our fields aren't in great shape. Mm-hmm. So tonight, the committee has been working on discussing the projects, and you're going to hear what we think the priorities should be and how we should spend some of this money.
Okay.
The questions?
So, Mayor, the next step of the presentation is a large ledger sheet of paper. Recreation Advisory Committee and the Recreation Director, there's been a lot of discussion about reskinning of the turf field, how that's going to happen, when that's going to happen, what the condition is. It looks like it's coming towards the end of its useful life. We certainly know that from a warranty standpoint and from the manufacturer's standpoint. 2021, 2022, 2023 is the time when it looks like it's going to need to be replaced. So that's one point that had us move forward with doing a pro forma. The second is it was a terribly rainy weather this spring, which just really created a greater need for understanding the turf fields, how to manage them, and how to accommodate all the athletes. As Maureen mentioned, the Little League is interested in the possibility of using the turf field, which is very different than what they talked about when the MRC first came aboard. They said, no, we're happy, we're on grass at Lucy D and Rosedale and Dodge Field, and we don't really have any interest in participating in the user fees or being part of the MRC. This past spring was terrible for the Little League in terms of the weather and being able to actually have any games. So because of that, they are now very much interested in being involved in the MRC, and to do so, there would be a need for them to pay user fees. The Recreation Advisory Committee has also discussed the possibility of increasing fees because other towns' user fees are much lower, and because they want to try to find a way to help financially reskin the fields. And all of this has kind of rekindled discussions about even having an additional turf field. Is an additional turf field possible? As such, I did a financial analysis and created a pro forma. I'm not going to go through the individual numbers. I'm happy to do that with council or with anyone, at a later date. But what I do want to say is what this shows and proves and what this details is the following. I would say in general, reserving or setting aside funds is always the most prudent way to manage and appropriate the funds. We do it right now with the $300,000 gift that's for remediation, land acquisition, and aquifer recharge, and we do it already with the Green Acres funds. This pro forma has one major assumption, and that's that the user fees would be increased to $50 per player and that the Little League participates. Every indication from the Recreation Advisory Committee and all the participating sports is that they would be absolutely willing to do that, especially if some of the following actions that are also assumed in this pro forma happen. The pro forma, by doing the analysis, supports the following conclusions. First, we would have about $1.1 million for reskinning the turf field. That can be fully funded from the Open Space Trust Fund if we dedicate the past user fees and past field rentals, and going forward dedicate all of those funds for reskinning. We would have $1.1 million that we could put aside in a reserve for reskinning the field. $1 million could also be appropriated if council determines that we should consider a new turf field. The project could start as early as 2019. There clearly needs to be a lot of discussion as to where, what, how, but funds will be accumulated in reserves from 2019 to 2024 to make that purchase. So when that purchase happens would be up to council. This also allows for $250,000 to $350,000 to be available annually for other projects to be determined, as Austri just spoke about a few minutes ago. Year to date, we have only appropriated $192,000 for the other projects. That's the whole bottom section of our report here. If you add that all up, it's $192,000. So we're $60,000 under. If another project comes, the one that Austri mentioned was a small $800 project, but there may be others that come, other funding requests. So this pro forma still can accommodate that type of funding. And as a reminder, in years past, we did MRC bleachers, we did LACs, we did a number of fundings for the James building, for the museum building, and alike. There have been a number of projects, major, that have been funded through here, community garden projects and alike. So this pro forma proves that we can do the reskinning, we could do a turf field, we'd still have $250,000 to $350,000 annually, and that all the other obligations would be taken care of. That's the debt and the common area maintenance and alike. So, any questions? Or go ahead.
Why don't I add to that, because the Open Space Advisory Committee has been looking, when we started the project, to update our open space element to the master plan. We were looking at the money, we were looking at potential projects, and knowing that we had the reskinning and we knew that the recreational field situation was very tight. And so for several months we have discussed the different projects, and Jim then came in September to the Open Space Advisory Committee and had a draft of this and discussed the possibilities of how we could go about reskinning MRC 1 and 2 and potential sites to increase the number of fields. Zach Ellis, the recreation director, was also there. The committee toured the parks and fields in August and then continued discussing the future projects then, which would require open space funding. So as Jim said, based on the numbers and the current condition of the turf at MRC 1 and 2, the committee agreed with both Jim and Zach that figuring out how to fund was a priority. And based on the numbers, Jim recommended that the future field rental fees and user fees could be encumbered and set aside, and he recommended that we go back to 2016 and 2017, that's a total of $189,000 to be set aside, and then going forward, continue to keep that those user fees and rental fees encumbered. So by 2023, total funding for MRC 1 and 2 reskinning would be available. Meanwhile, there continues to be sufficient funds, because this was important to us, it's a priority, because there are projects, the Museum of Early Trades and Crafts has been a good caretaker of the James Library building. That project's finished, but we know that we have the east wing of Hartley Dodge Memorial. We have the plaza, and there may be other historic preservation projects that may come up. And so we will continue to have $250,000 to $300,000 yearly for other projects. And the committee also discussed the fact that we really are hurting for fields, and as Jim said, that it seems with the weather conditions that we've seen this year, we may continue to have that it might be wise to look into an additional turf field, one where you could have lights, and the logical place would be the fields immediately adjacent to MRC 1 and 2 with the school board. That requires cooperation between the school board and the municipality, and the committee urges the council to move forward on that. So, what we would like to do tonight, the committee unanimously passed a resolution supporting the encumbrance of the user fees and the rental fees for the returfing, of the reskinning of MRC 1 and 2. And we also would unanimously agreed that this borough and the school board should start discussing the possibility of putting a turf field adjacent to MRC 1 and 2. If you're, once we have questions and answers, which we will have, we would like to make a motion tonight. I would like to make a motion tonight to ask that the council agree to encumber those funds for MRC 1 and 2.
Maureen?
Yeah, I support the Recreation Advisory Committee, and we've been talking about turf fields for a long time. What's happening is we're very popular, especially because we have lights on the MRC. So we're getting a lot of rental use out of them. But on the other side, it's very difficult for a lot of our rec sports to practice on the turf field. For example, to practice on the high school field, they have to wait until the high school practice is over, which is approximately 6 p.m., and daylight savings time is coming, and that'll remove it. And the other thing that's pushing the installation of a third turf field is the sports themselves. Field hockey, soccer, lacrosse, a number of sports are now requiring that games be played on turf, not grass. So, just that way, we're going to have additional pressure on our turf fields. So that's what we've been discussing.
Ben?
I actually serve on this committee as well, and for a while now I've been asking about how we're going to do the re-skinning of the turf fields, which I keep hearing we're going to have to do fairly soon. And we really exhausted all other potential sources. So this is not only a logical source given the name of the trust fund, it may well be the only reasonable source available as well. There's no question that in addition to the 2 turf fields, we have a number of fields that are really below standard, that we really have to get up to snuff. And those projects will be coming forward as well.
Carmela?
I think that was my question, Ben, and I wanted to elaborate a little bit about it. I live across the street from Lucy D. Fields, and most of the time they've been underwater. You know, second base has been underwater, so there's been a lot of difficulty. And sometimes what happens is that the volunteers come and try and fix, the puddles. Well, if you don't fix them right, they only just get worse. So I think that I don't have a problem with another turf field whatsoever. I think that what kind of would be nice is somebody consider up near Bailey Ellard, there's that great spot, you could put lights there.
No, you can't.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's
because of
it's
the seniors?
restricted.
Okay.
No, it's restricted on the property when we sign the lease, the sale with the diocese.
Okay. But that's a good place for it. But I don't think that I would like to see Little League not improve all of the fields. They should continue with that besides doing this turf field, because I think that there's some cool things to be playing baseball on grass.
No, there's
and I think that the kids kind of need to learn that kind of concept. So that's the only thing I would be concerned with, is that that project should go forward. We've advanced them the money so far, and whatever it needs, it should be done.
Yeah, Carmela, they fully intend to restore all of the old softball and baseball fields, including the 2 fields at Lucy D.
No, we need all of them.
Yeah.
I know.
We've got John in the queue here.
I just wanted to say thank you so much for an absolutely excellent presentation. The analysis that went behind this, the gathering of the data, your rationale, the inclusion of the committees that have supported this. As far as I'm concerned, I think this is a go. I think we need to move forward with this entirety. The way you have it laid out, I think it's absolutely outstanding. So you've got my full, wholehearted support for it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ben, you had?
I was just going to mention that there are plans at various stages of maturity for the various fields we have in town to improve them to whatever level we can, and certainly to make them more playable, including drainage for a number of our fields, which has indeed been a problem. Zach Ellis, unfortunately, couldn't be here this evening, but he's done a really terrific job in scoping out this work, and it will come in time to this council for their approval, for our approval.
Pat, did you?
Yeah. I appreciate all the work, and actually, unfortunately, I only got the spreadsheet this afternoon, so I was looking at it. I spoke to Jim at length about it. I will probably actually I should take that back. I still maintain, and I wrote this down here somewhere, a pay-as-you-use philosophy, which is, we shouldn't be simultaneously paying off the current fields and having the same people also pay for the next set. I would prefer we can finish paying off what we currently have and then move the user fees and the rentals to cover some sort of debt that's tied to the length of the use of the field, and we keep doing that in perpetuity. I've explained this multiple times over the years, both for this and for the electric utility. So, that's always been my position, and I still think that's fair to the residents, the taxpayers, and the users, because you really shouldn't be paying for something twice, nor should you be paying for something you may never use. I also would like a better understanding, because when I looked at this, over 11 years, we're going to be spending $10 million, and that's why I always ask for, what are the list of projects that we're considering that are going to consume all this, because I would like to be sure that from a council perspective, we're prioritizing them. I'm pretty sure that there's probably a need for more fields and refurbishing the current fields. I would like to see some sort of report, though, that does explain, because I think when we did the turf fields in the first place, we had a fairly extensive report between the Board of Ed and the borough that explained what the need was, because I think when we go to the community and say we're going to spend all this money, it'd be helpful to say, this is the current state of affairs in terms of what we have in capacity, this is what we really need, and this is what we're projecting our needs are. So I think we really should start to get our handles on that. And I would also like to really have somebody do a formal estimate of what both the cost of the reskinning is going to cost. Is it truly $1 million? Because that's the number we've been throwing around. But I'd like to see somebody actually analyze that, a professional who says that that's what it's going to cost. And also in terms of what we're going to do with the Board of Ed, I only found out about that in the last 3 days. So I'd really like to hear way more about that before we really get too far down the road on this, because we talked about this 10 years ago when we were doing the original MRC project. And in the end, the borough decided to go ahead without the Board of Ed. I was on the Board of Ed at the time, and I thought at the time it was a good opportunity to sort of treat both properties as one complex. So I'd be very supportive of that, but I would still like to see what we're going to do there and how it's going to impact our need both today and let's say over the next 10 years.
Ostry, and I think Ben.
About a few months ago, the rec committee made a presentation to council. You were here, weren't you? Dave went, the chair of the rec committee went over all the needs and the problems with our current field situation and upgrading the fields, as well as the need for the reskinning to be put in place. And so if you talk to the parents in this town, and have had them come before both the rec committee and the open space committee, this is a priority. This is not just coming out of the sky. This is something we really, truly need.
And
Yes, I just have a comment on your comment regarding financing. I think we've been here before, but let me try this out. There are two problems with the idea that the people who are using it should pay for it, right? Or the people who in the future will be using it should pay for it. One of those is those people are always changing, right? So it's not as if there's someone who you can immediately identify as a previous user as opposed to a current user as opposed to a future user. They're users. And I think the distinction is a difficult one to rely on, but more importantly is that I look at athletic fields as one of those public goods that everyone in Madison benefits from. In much the same way I look at the museum, in much the same way I look at our schools. I have no children in the schools. I go to the museum maybe once every other year, and I don't play any athletics. But I'm willing to pay for all those things because I think those are the things that contribute to this being a more and better town. And I think also that we all benefit financially because our properties are worth more because we have such excellent facilities.
Yeah. In terms of the users, I mean, it's absolutely simple. The people who are using it the year that they're using it would be paying user fees, and their open space taxes would be going to pay down that portion of, that 10% or the 15%, however we decide to stretch out the debt on the field turfing. They would absolutely be paying for exactly what they're using.
I may have missed your point, but you want to use debt financing to pay for them and then have the fees pay for the principal and interest on the debt financing?
The field rentals, the user fees would probably pay the bulk of it. If we need to supplement it with some open space tax, we could. But I think it should, especially if we're going to raise the user fee to $50 a year in the Little League again, I think we can get very close to the amount of money it's going to cost too.
So I think the area of agreement is that user fees would be reinvested one way or another in the turf fields. There was a comment of people are paying, may not use it, but the reason Little League is not paying right now is they don't use the MRC. So anyone that uses it is paying for the upkeep, and it's especially important with rentals who may or may not. It's not direct borough program, so they certainly should be paying. So, and right now we could be going back and forth as to financing versus this and that, but I think the key theme is user fees to keep those fields in top-notch condition, so we don't have fields that with split seams and things like that, but actually become a hazard and get shut down and disrupt a season because we didn't plan ahead of time.
I just think it's a basic conversation as to whether you use debt financing for capital projects or you pay as you go. And this council has established that pay as you go is preferable, and I think that's the case in this particular application as well. I don't see any reason to differentiate this from all the other capital expenditures we incur.
Well,
So that's
not to be
my
argumentative,
point.
but, I mean, the council did borrow money for its portion of the turfing when it had money available in the, I forget, the specific account where you had already borrowed money. So, you know, that, I still think.
No,
again,
I don't, you're going down a path that I don't really want to go down either, but let me just say that it was with some reluctance that we issued debt to pay for those fields.
But we did.
But that was not the initial intent. It was approved with a very different plan in place that did not produce. So the fail-safe was you had to pay for them. So the fail-safe turned out to be to issue debt. But had the initial plan been in place, it would have been another pay-as-you-go project.
Yep.
You can argue about it, but I disagree. But that's fine. I'm talking about the borough portion of the debt. I'm not talking about the short-term.
No, I understand.
Or the what ends up being the user fees and the money that the MAF provided.
If you're talking about the land, it's one thing. If you're talking
No, I'm not talking about the
fields,
land.
another.
I'm talking there was really three borrowings. There was money borrowed for the land.
Correct.
There was money borrowed short-term to cover the Board of Ed and what was supposed to be the MAF and what I thought was going to be the user and rental fees. And then there was essentially the $1 million plus that the borough originally was going to reserve in capital and then in the end decided to borrow money. Is that last part that I'm...
But it's the amount that was borrowed, and the timing of it was because of a difference between the initial plan and the actual plan.
We should have that discussion separately because we've gone all night.
Fine.
Okay, I think we've got, yep.
Anyway.
Okay. All right, Astrid.
If all questions have been answered, if the council is comfortable with the recommendations by the Open Space Committee, I would like to make a motion to ask our CFO to set us up a reserve for reskinning MRC 1 and 2 by encumbering the field rental fees and user fees from 2016 onward.
I'll second that.
And I think what best way to handle this is we're getting, we'll have a vote on kind of marching orders, but we'll come back with a resolution or ordinance, whichever is most appropriate. So.
It can be done by voice vote, Mayor. Resolution doesn't have to be an ordinance, so it can be done this evening if you want to do it by voice vote.
All right.
I'm sorry.
And
Before I vote no, I want people to understand why I'm voting no. It's not because I'm against the fields or believe that we're not going to end up doing this. This is just not my preferred way of doing the financing.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Mrs. Vitale?
Yes.
Ms. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Wolkowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Rowe?
No.
Ms. Byrne?
Yes.
Mr. Hoover?
Yes.
Okay, I have a second motion. That the borough begin discussions with the school board to discuss the feasibility of a turf field project on school board property adjacent to MRC 1 and 2.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote.
Mrs. Vitale?
Yes.
Ms. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Wolkowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Rowe?
Yes.
Ms. Byrne?
Yes.
Mr. Hoover?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Very good. Thanks for the report. Barbara, thank you for joining us tonight, and looking forward to more. And now we're going to move on to electric utility reliability. John Hoover, as our liaison, are you going to start it off?
There's no jokes.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Do you have the clicker?
Just tell me when you want to go.
Next. Okay. So in summary, so there were 16 different outages in Madison this past year. The outage events affected anywhere from 10 to 350 people. There were no large-scale or town-wide outages, however. They were each individual outages. And based on a survey by the Institute for Electrical Engineering, Madison scored in the top 10% of the most reliable utilities in the country. Next. Did that? Borough of Madison, the January 21st, 2015 Strategic Planning Report on Utilities recommended that the borough compile data and collect information on all power outages. Use an industry standard reliability index to objectively evaluate the utility, and Jim will go into that in a little while. In the Borough of Madison, the outages are broken down into like 5 segments: external, wildlife, accidents, weather, and equipment. As you can see, the accidents were the largest. One was a huge truck fire, if you remember, back on January 24th, 2017 at 255 Main Street at 5:40 in the morning. Flames coming from under the hood, shooting 30 to 40 feet in the sky and consuming the cab. According to early police report, primary and secondary electrical lines were completely burned apart, causing a power outage in the area and additional electrical hazards to responders at the scene. So that was one big one. There were others too, like accidents included cars running into things and stuff like that. So those were the keys. The industry recognized reliability index. How do we objectively compare ourselves to other utilities like JCP&L, PSE&G, etc.? Math. The system average interruption duration index, the average outage duration for each consumer that's served. Jim will go into the rest. Please.
Okay, so my math teacher, Mrs. Bolpa, would be very happy that we're using math to do this. And the point is to take this sheet here, and anybody that's in the audience may want to grab this sheet, it's over there. This shows the 16 different outages that occurred. It's a little small to read on that, but council has this packet, or this sheet of paper at their table. It shows the 16 different items. John referenced the biggest one, which was a truck fire that knocked out a significant number of residents for a long period of time. What happens is this SAIDI index allows us to compare ourselves to large utilities, small utilities, and alike. We all voluntarily do this calculation, or many of them do, and they submit it blindly. You don't know who the utility is, but the information is submitted, and we can kind of blindly compare ourselves to our other utilities, not knowing who they are. So the math is real simple. It's column A, which you see on the sheet here, multiplied by column B, and that gives you total outage hours. And you can see that it pops up there. It's already on here, and you add that all up, and it tells us the total outage hours is 3,386.2. I want to make it clear, and hopefully it doesn't get reported, that's not the number of outages we had. As John said, we only had 16 outages. They only impacted 10 to 250, 350 customers. That's just how this math works. We take that number of 3,386 and we divide it by our number of customers. In Madison, we have 6,624 customers. It comes out to 30 minutes. And what that means is there are 525,600 minutes in a year. The average customer in Madison experienced 30 minutes of electric outage for 2017. So that is obviously 0.00 whatever percent of the number of minutes in a year. So that means our SAIDI score is 30.6 minutes. So how do we then compare that? This chart here shows all the different utilities, and if you had really good eyes, you could see they're all identified not by name but by number: utility 2, utility 25, utility 150. And this shows the different scores, and you can see that the very first line on the horizontal axis is 100 hours. Some of the utilities had 300, 500, 700, over 1,000 minutes, not hours, over 1,000 minutes of outage in their score. Madison is at 30. That literally puts us in the top 10%. So of all these utilities listed here, Madison is all the way over to the left, which is the very, one of the highest scores that we could get. And so I thought that was really worth mentioning, because the strategic planning committee group sat there and said, we all know and we all feel that Madison has a great utility. How can we prove it? And I think this proves it through comparing, by using this index and by comparing ourselves to other utilities. So, any questions?
Questions from the
One comment I would make in the future, can we identify the other New Jersey utilities?
No, we can't. They won't tell you what they won't do that. We all voluntarily agree to be honest
Yeah.
in the way we report, and we all agree that that everyone is submitted anonymously. So unfortunately, I did ask that question, and we can't find out. Maybe we could contact them, and they'd be willing to voluntarily tell us. But the IEEE will not release that information to us.
Oh, it's IE. Well, yeah, I would contact the other utilities and just say, can you tell us which utility you are on this chart?
That's a good point. I know that Sussex Rural does this, so I can find out what theirs was for 2017 for fun.
That'd be good. Any other questions or comments? Maureen?
Yeah, I think this once again proves that the strategic plan process that we went through a few years ago, that I think all of us were involved in, has proved its worth. And it's something that probably should be redone sometime in the next 5 to 10 years because, different issues come up.
Yep, thank you. Good point. Any other comments? Thank you for the great report, and we'll share the great news. Moving on, there are no ordinances for hearing since the ordinance introduced, the last one was on a Wednesday and not on a Monday. We didn't have enough time in between. So that will be carried to October 10th. And so now we're on to invitations for discussion from the public. Number 2, this is when you may comment on any topic. Again, state your name, your address, write the same on the clipboard, try to keep your comments to 3 minutes, and if you get to 3, I'll give you a 1-minute grace period and ask you to stop at 4. Anyone wishing to comment, please step forward. Kathy?
Kathy Daly, West End Avenue. I actually just have 2 questions, and it's just because I'm new to this conversation. But the first question I have is about the turf fields. How do turf fields impact impervious coverage? And then the second question that I have is about the user fees in the past, prior to 2016 and until tonight. What were those user fees being used for that would be beneficial for everyone who's hearing this conversation tonight who wasn't part of the conversation 10 years ago to know what we've been using those user fees for? Thanks.
Okay, thank you. So as far as the user fees have been dedicated only for the turf fields, and as was pointed out in the discussion, it was to help cover the debt service on the fields as we came up with the 3-way partnership, and then didn't quite cover everything, plus the project went beyond where it was, and there was discussions when these user fees were put in place that it would probably make sense that they would be eventually shifted to maintenance. As far as impervious surface, I think
I'm pretty sure they're impervious.
Yeah,
They have to be.
they're pervious.
They're pervious.
Pervious, yes.
Pervious.
The water percolates through and does work its way to recharge.
Correct.
Yep.
Yeah, because the system underneath it doesn't go anywhere, right? It just allows it the time to percolate around.
Right.
Yeah, they're impervious because that's all the environmental concerns come from that entire.
That's
They didn't leak into the ground, it wouldn't be an issue.
There's a whole drainage system. Yeah, that was part of the discussion. Any other comments from the public? Seeing none, I close this part of the meeting. And we move on to introduction of ordinances. Will the clerk please read the statement?
Ordinance scheduled for first reading has a hearing date set for Wednesday, October the 10th, 2018. It will be published in the Madison Eagle, posted on the bulletin board, made available to members of the public requesting copies.
I call up ordinance 47-2018 for first reading and ask the clerk to read said ordinance by title.
Ordinance 47, 2018, ordinance of the Borough of Madison amending Section 136-32 of the Borough Code entitled Special Event Permits.
Mayor, I move ordinance 47-2018.
I second it.
Okay. Quick question on the layout of the ordinance. There's, under D, it says see application rate for schedule, but then all of a sudden it lists the rates.
So it only lists two rates, Mayor, which are what were considered to be kind of the most important ones, the use of the exterior space and the consumption of alcohol. The other schedule includes a number of different rates. Is it during the day? Is it in the evening? Is it weekday? Is it weekend? Is it a not-for-profit in Madison, a not-for-profit out of Madison, a for-profit, a person that wants to rent it? So there's a number of different schedules and how long they want to rent it for, up to 4 hours and then every hour thereafter. And that was presented by the business director at the last council meeting.
So it's just to have these two, felt important to cover these two add-on charges in the ordinance, and the rest, which we know will be kind of a work in progress anyway. So this will, as far as the other fees, they would not have to come back and change ordinance as the space evolves. Okay, any other comments or questions? Okay, roll call vote, please.
Mrs. Vitale?
Yes.
Ms. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Wolkowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Rowe?
Yes.
Ms. Byrne?
Yes.
Mr. Hoover?
Yes.
Okay, consent agenda resolutions. Will the clerk please read the statement?
Consent agenda resolutions will be enacted with a single motion. Any resolution requiring expenditure is supported by a certification of availability of funds. Any resolution requiring discussion will be removed from the consent agenda. All resolutions will be reflected in full in the minutes.
Mr. Mayor, I move resolution R 256 through 269-2018.
I'll second.
Any need to be pulled or any discussion? Roll call vote.
Mrs. Vitale?
Yes.
Ms. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Wolkowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Rowe?
Yes.
Ms. Byrne?
Yes.
Mr. Hoover?
Yes.
There is no unfinished business. Approval of vouchers. Please read.
For the current fund, $4,005,980.35. General Capital Fund, $5,344.80. Electric Operating Fund, $762,966.16. Water Operating Fund, $29,588 even. Trust, $9,057.87. The total is $4,812,937.18.
Mr. Mayor, I move the bill list.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote.
Mrs. Vitale?
Yes.
Ms. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Wolkowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Rowe?
Yes.
Ms. Byrne?
Yes.
Mr. Hoover?
Yes.
There is no new business.
I move that we adjourn, Mr. Mayor.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Good evening.
Jim?
Board of Barbara's.
Okay, because they should just change our tax levy.
Wait,
Jim?
wait, let me get it out. So I'm not going to remember this.
I'll circle it for you.
Hey, Jim?
Wait, you wrote it?
It says levy. I didn't write, just write.
Maureen Goodrock.